Good morning, everyone. Those of you that braved the big rain. You know, the tulips are getting a bath. It's okay. Welcome. Nice to have you here. And those of you that are online, we appreciate it. Want to introduce, myself, Andy Mayer, President and CEO of the Mount Vernon Chamber of Commerce. And we're here, part of a presentation from the Skagit Chamber Alliance. Other members are Steph Reese, who you know from Burlington, Monique Brigham, who's online, Jessica Kaiser, Anacortes Chamber, Mark Holst, LeConner Chamber, and Ann Bazier from Concrete Chamber. Skagit Chamber Alliance is composed of the 6 chambers. Working together, we represent about 2,000 unique businesses in our region. Our purpose is to work together for the interests of our member, our communities, and the future of Skagit County. So that's why we're here, and we appreciate everyone participating. So what we're going to do is have the legislators give their perspective on what happened, or maybe what happened, what didn't happen, if you like, that's okay too. During the session, 5 minutes each, and I am going to hold you to that so that we can get to the questions. We'll go according to the agenda that I don't know if I gave you one, Liz, but there's one down at the end there. So let's get started. District 10, Senator Ron Mazzal, the floor is yours.
Well, hopefully this all works. Most of the time I don't need a mic, so I will speak fairly low. State Senator Ron Mazzal, 10th Legislative District. I'm a farmer by trade, although I've served in lots of different nonprofit and for-profit boards, up to Fortune 200 companies. This was my 5th session in the Senate. I am deputy chair of the caucus. I am on Ways and Means. I am on assistant ranking on health and long-term care. I'm ranking on ag and natural resources. I serve on rules. Interesting session. For a short session, we continued to hear how busy it was. I did remind people that was the first short session that we have been in person since 2020. So we had virtual short sessions, but 20 was our last in person. We had a lot of bills, 1,200 plus, passed about 350. We had some challenges. I would say, at least in the Senate, once again, and our Lieutenant Governor makes a point of saying that we work well together. Opposing views, different views, but we all have different views, even our own caucus. I had 5 bills, largely that had to do with health and long-term care and ag. Usually have one that has to do with Medicaid reimbursements, and we passed one that has to do with setting the rates for long-term care facilities with DSHS. Then we had a FREP bill, which was a relief to the timber industry because it allows them to be paid for buffers within along streams, steep, unstable slopes, and the like. Another Department of Ag bill that has to do with pest and disease that allows them to prepare and have the availability of funds to be able to react to different diseases and pests, which is becoming a bigger deal all the time. Had a telehealth bill, had to do with reimbursement for actual telehealth, and and the second of a series of bills that I have primed on maternal health. And so we were fortunate to get five bills through this last session, and I think that's probably enough talking about me. I'll hand it off to the next.
That was brief. I wasn't ready. Let's see, Clyde Shavers will be here any moment, but let's go to Representative Dave Paul if he is online.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes, there he is.
Excellent. It's so nice to see everybody, and I'm sorry I'm not there in person.
Unless it's on our end, let's imagine that's not it.
Can you hear me now?
We can't hear you.
You can? No.
But you look marvelous.
It's
There
really
we
kind
go.
of- Hi, folks. Can you hear me this time?
Yes.
So nice to see everybody, and I'm sorry I'm not there in person. I work at Skagit Valley College when I'm not in Olympia, and I teach American government class here in less than an hour over on the Oak Harbor campus. So I really appreciate the chamber for holding this, and really enjoy these opportunities to talk to folks in the community about the work we're doing and get feedback on that. So for folks, if you don't know me, I'm Dave Paul. I serve in the 10th district with Senator Muzal and Representative Schaefer's, and I'm in my 6th year as a legislator. Was elected in 2018, and I've served on the House Transportation Committee. I'm vice chair of that committee, and I asked for that leadership position because of the importance of ferries in our district. I also serve on the Innovation and Community and Economic Development Committee, and asked to be on that committee because of rural economic development and broadband issues. That committee also now addresses veterans issues. And then I serve on the Post-Secondary Education Workforce Committee, and I care a lot about reducing college debt and improving college affordability. And so I've worked a lot on dual credit enrollment. That's opportunities for students to participate in programs like College in the High School and Running Start and earn college credit while they're still in high school. Something that I have spent a lot of time on this past year is considering ways of improving our CTE dual credit programs. Those are our K-12 programs that help students with learning a trade. And we got funding for the northwest corner of the state, met with some of those folks yesterday to help align K-12 curriculum with community college curriculum, apprenticeship programs. So one of the areas that they're focusing on right now is computer science and the need for cybersecurity pathways, but we'll also look at healthcare and other important areas in the upcoming year. It's short 60-day session, so it is harder to get big bills through the legislative process, but I focused on affordability. And a year ago, the legislature did really good work on reducing the cost of insulin, the life-saving drug that's been around for decades, but has gotten ridiculously expensive. This year we looked at asthma inhalers and EpiPen. Those are the auto injectors for epinephrine that a lot of folks, if they're in a critical situation with a food allergy, to get that medication. Those have also increased dramatically over the last decade in terms of their cost. EpiPens now can be $600 for a 2-pack of those. So we cap that at $35. I Prime sponsored that legislation. Really excited to see that get through this year. And we'll continue to look for ways of helping to reduce healthcare costs in future years. When I ran 6 years ago and knocked on a lot of doors, I heard about the importance of behavioral health and substance use disorder treatment and mental health services and helping to address homelessness. Those issues are still front and center, I think, of our constituents and our communities. And I'm proud that the legislature focused on those areas this past legislative session. So we helped secure funding in all 3 counties served by the 10th district for some sort of behavioral health services. So the Skagit County Crisis Stabilization Center got additional funding. We had a really late request for the Holman Recovery Center down in Arlington that we worked on in a bipartisan across both chambers to get that in the budget. It came in very late, but because of the emphasis this year on having more services to help folks in crisis, we were able to get that funding. And then we also received additional funding for the Atua center that's in Oak Harbor. So all 3 counties received additional funding, and we'll be looking at expanding the Atua facility in the upcoming budget. And then on ferries, probably spend more time on ferries than any other issue. I'm the chief budget writer for the ferries in the House, and we've got both a shortage of vessels and a shortage of crew members. We had a number of programs in the last budget that are doing good work, that are getting more people into the ferry system to help reduce cancellations because of crew shortages. Some of those programs were expanded this past year because they've been so successful. Also pleased to add additional crew members on the routes so that if one person calls in sick, the dispatch staff is not scrambling to help fill that slot to help meet the minimum Coast Guard standards for sailings. So that's some of the work I'm doing, and I can stay online till about a quarter till, and then I'll have to go off to teach, but look forward to hearing from others and hearing your questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Paul. Let's go now to Representative Shavers, please.
Thank you very much, and I apologize for my delay. Meetings lasting a little bit longer and traffic and all that stuff. So I appreciate everyone being here this early in the morning, and I appreciate you all being very involved in the political dialogue, discussion, and I just would love to kind of talk with you and share about my thoughts for this session. So this was as a new freshman legislator or semi-freshman legislator here. This was the end of my first term. And so I believe that we've done a lot of work, bipartisan work, both sides of the aisle, really pursuing some really aggressive policies for this year and last year as well. So if I was going to talk about all the things we've done, I'd be here for about 8 hours. So I'll kind of focus on 3 areas and then also focus on what I hope to do moving forward. So first, we've really tackled education in a substantive way. As vice chair of the House Education Committee, we're really tackling special education, tackling reduced school meals, and tackling just how do we ensure that we expand on the career learning opportunities for all of our students, high school, middle school, and elementary school as well. So this year, I'm very proud to have introduced and passed House Bill 2236, which does 2 major things. The first, it creates a task force that looks at the comprehensive review of our CTE or our Career Technical Education program. I think it's a very big step moving forward because, as we know, our high schools should focus on how do we ensure that our students have meaning in their life, purpose after they graduate, right? And also while they're in high school. And through that, we can use CTE courses. We can ensure that schools in Eastern Washington have culinary classes or firefighting classes if they want to. Schools in Western Washington and here in Skagit or in Island or Snohomish, they have classes in robotics or artificial intelligence or whatever these students are really involved with. So I think we should have this comprehensive review or this look to see how can we provide equitable training or equitable career curriculum learning for all of our students across Washington State. So very, very important push. The second major thing is it introduces healthcare curriculum in our high schools. So as we know, we have workforce gaps, significant substantive workforce gaps in our healthcare system, especially in behavioral health, in long-term care, so home care aides, caregivers, nursing assistants. So through that, I believe that it's important for us to find this nexus between how do we develop a new generation of young adults serving within our communities. And what's amazing is studies show that when we provide these career opportunities, in this case, healthcare opportunities, yes, they go on to, maybe higher education to become nurses one day, but most of them actually come back to their community. So I think it's amazing that how do we grow these young adults to be enthusiastic about serving, let's say, senior citizens in our community and learn abroad or learn in different states after high school and then come back and really help our community. So really big bill, really appreciate the help, bipartisan help with that as well. In terms of special education, we really raised the cap again this year. So last year, and we raised it from about 15 to 16 and about 16% to 17 this year as well. So we're looking forward to ensuring that every student that has an IEP, every student in special education has tailored resources, tailored tools to really succeed. And so very, very proud of that as well. And finally, in education, we're looking to expand reduced school meals. My belief is that every student should have the opportunity, should have the ability to actually, get food during school so that they aren't suffering while they're trying to learn as well. So really working on those as well. And there's many other priorities that we have in education. Second is environmental protection. So my belief in environmental protection is a balance, right? We need to ensure that we pursue effective, cost-effective, equitable environmental initiatives. But at the same time, we need to ensure that we, the folks that are working in the space now, aren't being driven out of a job, that we ensure that we create high-paying jobs and equitable jobs across our state. So I'm very proud to have introduced and passed House Bill 1924, which is the first major fusion technology bill ever in Washington State. So fusion technology is one of the most clean energy technologies that's developing in Washington State. And many of us don't know, Washington State actually has one of the most fusion technology companies in the US. So why don't we just tap into that skill set, right? Why don't we tap into the talent that's already here and highlight to the public, highlight to the US that we do care about clean energy, that we do care about ensuring that we create a robust economy so that one day in Skagit County, we're going to have fusion plants. One day we can really, boost the skill set that we have across Washington State to come here and work on clean energy. And finally, we're working on law enforcement as well. So my concern with law enforcement is recruitment and retention. That continues to be an issue across Skagit County and across Washington State as well. So I worked very closely with Senator John Lovick actually last year, and this year finally passed the Senate version where it allows police departments to have more discretion in hiring folks with flexible work schedules. For example, talking with new mothers, for example, they really can't do the full duty, the full shift for the whole day. And so we don't want to discourage these new mothers from serving within our community. So this allows police departments to really kind of able to tailor these work schedules for different situations. Also, let's say for people who are retired, who wants to actually go back to serving in law enforcement, it really allows that as well. So those are kind of the major priorities we're working on moving forward. And that's where I get really excited because we're always trying to move forward, right? Our job is not to just solve yesterday's problems, but it's also to solve tomorrow's problems today. And so I'm working very hard to try to.
Representative, let's hold on a little bit. We're over time. Sorry about that.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
You can work that in your answers.
Sounds good.
So-
Thank you.
Let's move to the 39th District. Senator Keith Wagner, please.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here with my wonderful seatmates from the 39th. You got all three of us, and hopefully I won't steal too much of their thunder. I am the Republican whip, the minority whip. I serve on the powerful Ways and Means Committee. It's funny, the newspaper always calls it that. I don't feel very powerful there, but it is a nice place to work. I serve on Law and Justice, and I serve with Senator Mazzal in the Ag and Natural Resources space. So just so you know kind of the level of effort in the quote short session, which is supposed to be easier and make minor adjustments, and you don't think we're just down there sipping champagne. The number of bills that were introduced in this session was over 1,600 different bills. So that's an awful lot of homework for everybody on this panel. And of those, about 380 made it all the way to the finish line. So that should tell you that we're all down there working very, very hard. It's stressful. I like to say in the minority, sometimes you get what you get. But you get more in the minority if you're a reasonable person and you work across party lines. And that's something that we all try to do up here. For the 39th district, the 2024 budget ended up with about $5.9 million in capital investment. And Rep. Paul talked about a $4.5 million that went to the Skagit Stabilization Center. That's something I'm personally very proud. I identified the money. There was a project in Monroe that kicked back exactly the amount of money that was needed in Skagit. I went to Senator Mullet, who is the capital budget writer in the majority on Ways and Means, and presented the case, and he said, we're going to make it happen. Also worked in the House with Representative Steele and Abarno, and we got it done. So the stabilization center that a few years ago did not exist in Skagit County is going to increase by another 36 beds. It's phase 2 of a 3-phase project. And I was happy to hear Rep. Paul mention the Holman Recovery Center. because that was something that I worked on when a stranger named Mr. Holman came and had coffee with me in Arlington, and he had a sketch on a napkin, literally, of an idea for a recovery center. And like lots of great ideas, small beginnings. We got him the seed money, and that facility is saving lives, and now it's growing. So I was happy to hear about that. So this session was very unusual because we had 6 initiatives from the people to the legislature. And under the Constitution, we are required to address those first, ahead of all other issues except fiscal matters. That didn't exactly happen, but again, I'm in the minority, so you get what you get. Eventually, 3 of those initiatives were given public hearings. 3 of them were voted upon, and all 3 of them passed with pretty strong bipartisan support. I think the most important of those initiatives was the one that gives our officers the ability to pursue fleeing, suspects, I'll call them at this point, under the standard of reasonable suspicion. Probable cause was the standard that we changed to several years ago that led to a big uptick in auto thefts and property crimes and people stealing cars and smash and grabs. And the police were in a bit of a quandary because the standard of probable cause is much higher. And as an example, police officers get a call to a 7-Eleven. It's a robbery, armed robbery. They come to the scene and they see 3 people running out, jumping in a car and speeding away. They do not have probable cause to pursue them. But under this new standard, they will. And I think that's going to make a big difference in how we handle crime in Washington. And I think it's going to get that graph to turn down. Very important. There are 3 initiatives that will go on the ballot. All I can say about that under our rules is educate yourself and vote accordingly. I had 3 bills that passed. Most of them don't affect Chamber of Commerce folks, but I do want to talk about one that I worked with Senator Loveland on, and that has to do with how our emergency responses respond to spills. As you know, we had a big spill in Conway, and there were a lot of people who did not feel like they got timely notification who lived close. And I started a bill to work on the notification process. Senator Loveland came to me and said, well, we also have a little failure in public information. So we worked collaboratively, got a good bill, learned a lot about hazardous waste and how it's ranked and how people respond to it. And we got that across the finish line. So the next time we have one, and I hope there isn't a next time, people can expect quicker notification and they can expect to be involved in the process so that they know more and they can have their input into that process. So I'm going to leave it there. I usually don't talk that long. And maybe Liz will talk more about our bill. I was happy to work with her on that.
Thank you, Senator Wagner. Let's go to Representative Eslick, please.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for being here today. My name is Carolyn Eslick. I live in Sultan, Washington, right off of that wonderful Highway 2. And I was appointed in 2017 and been running ever since and enjoying 99% of it. I have 3 committees that are official committees. I'm on the capital budget. I'm on human services, youth and childcare, and education. But along with those 3, I'm on 6 other committees. And so when they tell you that this is a part-time job, don't believe it. No, we work 24/7, and that's the facts. And I will put a plug in for the team that I work with, the 3 of us here. We did make that stabilization money a priority on our requests, and that is very helpful when it's time to get your budget through and bring that money home to our district. So kudos to my 2 partners here. I heard Senator Wagner say it doesn't involve chambers. Well, economic development involves chambers, and everything that we do in Olympia, in my opinion, involves economic development. We have to have safe streets. We have to have healthy families. We have to have healthy workforce. And when you go to Olympia, you might not know and be an expert on a lot of things, but you certainly learn fast. We are like a funnel. The information comes into us and we have to sort through everything and try to make sense of it. And then we do the best we can when it's time to vote. You might not like everything that we vote for, but 99% of the time, we are doing the best we can do for the people in our district. We are there for you. We did some good things this year, and it was, as they say, a short session, but it was, again, 24/7 work. It was a whirlwind to us. Some of the really good things that happened, in my opinion, is that we opened more beds for the mental health. I passed 2 bills this year, and one was scholarship to bring more people in behavioral health. So if you know someone that is interested in going into becoming a counselor or psychiatrist, they can get a free ride now. The application should be out in a month or so, and we'll only be able to handle a few to start with because it's a new program. But we're in desperate need, as you know. We need behavioral health in our schools. We understand that and we believe that. The other one was that my bill passed to add more childcare services. If you are a childcare provider and I don't know if you know this, but they don't make very much money. And so it's very difficult for them to pay for childcare. So this bill will allow them to get childcare while they are teaching and helping in childcare and providing that service. So those are the 2 bills that got passed this year. I will tell you that the PERS and the tourist one did get another 3% increase. And I know that there are people that appreciate that. It's not a lot, but at least we keep adding some to it. I am very involved in the children and mental health arena, and one of the bills that was very frustrating to me is, number one, a few years ago, we passed a bill that required that we try our hardest to keep our children and families together. Wonderful. However, if our folks are called into their family because of abuse and they come into the home and they see that there are drugs involved, it is not an automatic take the child out of the home. And now they did pass it, it's a little stronger. They call it, the courts must give great weight to taking that child out of the home. I will tell you that in my opinion, if there's fentanyl in the home, heroin in the home, that child needs to come out for their safety. I could not get that passed. We are moving the needle closer to that, but it's difficult. It's very difficult because we also know that trauma is involved with that child. Those are still his family. That's still his parents. It's trauma, but we also know that we've lost a lot of children too, because we have not moved that needle along enough. So we've done a few things in the increasing education in the schools for fentanyl. That's a pretty big deal. We also, one of the bills that was passed was to have money given to law enforcement to train dogs to smell fentanyl, because at this point they couldn't. And so that was a big deal, right? We need to have that. Let's see. One of my pet peeves is if you go down I-5, you see all the graffiti on the highway, right? Oh, gosh, where are those people that are doing it and what can we do? Well, there's a new law that says that WashDOT has to put together an abatement program for these folks. So if they catch them, they're going to have to help clean it up. I love that. I love that.
Representative Essick, I hate to do it, but I need to
Yes.
stop you
I have
there.
20 more minutes to go.
Uh,
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's go to Representative Lowe, please.
Good morning, Sam Lowe, State Representative in the 39th District, in my first term. And I do want to echo the comments of my seatmates. I've enjoyed working with both of them. They've both been there several terms before me. And so their knowledge and wisdom has definitely helped me be very successful in my first term. I do serve on the Transportation Committee. I'm the assistant ranking member on that, so I work very closely with Representative Paul, and he does work very hard on the ferry system, and I really enjoy working with him. He's been great to work with on transportation issues. You see us a lot on camera, but I can tell you, as much time as you see us on camera in the Transportation Committee, there's probably twice as much time off camera in leadership where we're working on the issues and going through the budget together. I also serve on the Housing Committee and working on housing issues. Obviously, we have a big shortfall when it comes to housing, and I'll talk about some of the bills I got to work on. I was recognized last week from the Washington Realtors. I received an award as Legislator of the Year for that, and so that was an honor I wasn't expecting, but just shows how much work happens behind the scenes on housing issues. I also serve on state government and tribal affairs. I enjoy working on that committee and working on election issues, and I'll talk about my election bill in just a second. And then I have a fourth committee, which is rules. And so the rules committee is great because all the legislators want to be your friend, because the rules committee helps pick which bills get heard on the House floor. And so I've enjoyed serving on that committee. A little bit about myself. I was a small business owner for 10 years before I got into elected office. And I enjoy small businesses. I love helping small businesses thrive. I was a member of the Lake Stevens Chamber of Commerce when I was a small business owner. And I worked very closely with the Sky Valley Chamber of Commerce too. I do live in Snohomish County. I live in Lake Stevens, which is the largest city in my district, 39th District. City of 43,000. So about 1 out of every 4 voters in the 39th District live in Lake Stevens. And I like with my two seatmates, we really cover the district very well, with Senator Wagner up here in Skagit, and then Representative Eslick covering the east part of the district. My day job is on the Snohomish County Council, so that's what I do. And I do have a meeting at 10 a.m. this morning on the Puget Sound Regional Council. I'm on the executive committee for that, so I will be ducking out at 9:59 and 30 seconds so I can get to that meeting on time. I'm also the chair of the State Transportation Improvement Board. And so I've done a lot of work in communities across the state on transportation issues, including with the new road that's proposed here in Burlington by the Costco. And so I think we did several $1 million to help with that project, and hopefully we'll get that over the hump. As far as bills this session, my first term as a whole, I've introduced 14 bills. 10 bills were heard in committee, 7 bills voted off the House floor, and 5 bills signed into law. The 3 bills I had this year that were signed into law, you never know which bills are going to get signed into law. I had some other bills I thought were better bills that didn't make it through the process, but at the end of the day, it's almost like Christmas. It's like whatever gift you get. And so the 3 bills that I had come through, the first one I got national news was my animal cruelty bill, and making sure there's a punishment, holding animal abusers accountable. I worked with the Skagit County Prosecutor's Office on that, and basically the problem is if you abuse one animal or abuse 200, they were treated the same under current law. And my bill will now make it a ranked felony, and that actually takes effect on June 6th. So that law will take effect on June 6th. And I appreciate Pisado Safe Haven in our district, which is in Sultan, for helping me with this bill, and then the Skagit County Prosecutor's Office. The other bill that I got a lot of publicity for this year was the elections bill, House Bill 1962, helping clean up our voter rolls. And I got that through, I think it was unanimous or unanimous -1, very supported, bipartisan bill all the way through. That bill actually takes effect next year. It doesn't take effect right in the middle of the election we're in now. And so that makes things really difficult when you try to implement new rules in the middle of an election that's already started. So that takes effect next year. And basically, if you live here in Skagit County and you move across the county, you could change your voter registration fairly easy. But if you move to Whatcom County, you basically start over. And what was happening is our voter rolls were getting bloated because Whatcom County wasn't communicating with Skagit County or King County or whoever to say, hey, this new voters transferred their voter registration here. And so cleaning up the voter roll has been a good thing. And I'm excited to have that bill signed into law. And then the last bill, and I'll close with this one, is House Bill 1987, the Workforce Housing Bill. That was a bill that the Skagit commissioners, I came to a meeting just like this last fall, and the Skagit commissioners said, hey, this is one of our priority bills. So I sponsored that bill, and Rep. Rommel was my co-sponsor on that bill. I appreciate his help. And we were able to get that bill all the way through, which was a Skagit priority. And we expanded the bill a little bit to include property too. So there's a lot more about that. You can go to repsamlow.com, which is my official House website, and you can see a lot more about the bills that I just mentioned and what they specifically do. And if you have questions, my email's on there too. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lowe. Let's go to Senator Lovelock, please.
Good morning, Skagit County. I'm Liz Loveland. I am the senator from the 40th district. So I serve the San Juan Islands and western portions of Skagit and Whatcom. I'm a 5th generation Skagitonian and former small business owner. If anybody's ever been to The Business in Anacortes, our long-standing record store, that was my baby for a few years. So small business considerations and buy local campaigns are my jam. I am the chair of the Local Government Land Use and Tribal Affairs Committee. I'm the vice chair of Energy, Environment, and Technology, and then I serve on the Transportation Committee, where with Representative Paul, we co-chair the Ferry Legislator Caucus. That has been an incredibly heavy lift with being handed over a ferry system that, to say it was anemic is an understatement. I would say hemorrhaging is probably the closer analogy, with 20 years of kind of deferred maintenance, failure to procure vessels, and crewing challenges that I think we're coming from a ways away. But it was in part because we had not fully funded any of those programs as a legislature. And so to come together and have a bicameral and bipartisan group that is focused on those issues to make sure we're continuing to deliver for our communities is incredibly important, especially on a year like this year, where our transportation budget revenues came in $6 billion with a B dollars under on the 16-year outlook. This is because of cost overruns, labor shortages, any number of things. And so for a supplemental budget year, it was defend position. Everybody was trying to make sure that their projects stayed in and that they were on schedule. And with that, we just took a very unified stance to protect what had been put into the ferry budget in particular, knowing that our communities are so deeply impacted when there are service disruptions. So to say that a 60-day session is fast and furious is also an understatement. We are legitimately cramming a year's worth of work into 2 months. And just to give some context, as a committee chair, when I receive House bills this year, I had two hearings to both hear, amend, and take executive action on every piece of legislation that came from the House that is under my committee jurisdiction. So for me, that is coming from 2 House committees with 4 hours to get all of that work done. So it really is a team effort. We are all in the relationship business. And I will say, we are very fortunate in our area to have a purple delegation that works together, with being both friendly, kind, but actually showing up willing to work. So a couple of the things that I worked on, although I would generally say I get a production credit on a number of the things that have been listed today, as both, chair of a committee and in leadership on the policy committees that I serve on. But my big bill has to do with developing geothermal resources for Washington State. So with the collaboration of the Nooksack tribe, we know that there is high potential for infinitely renewable, clean baseload energy up near Mount Baker, near Mount Rainier, and in the Central Valley. We front-loaded it with nation-leading language about tribal consultation. One thing that we can't continue to do is repeat the mistakes of the past that have made it so that we have ravished their cultural resources and sacred spaces. And so to be able to start with those relationships and meaningful collaboration, I think we're going to have outcomes that are going to be more productive, more respectful, and hopefully more timely. That's kind of the big one we were going for with that collaboration. So really happy to partner with the Nooksack Nation and others to deliver on that. You know, every year, I think we go down with a couple of mission critical ideas. We want to make sure that our budgets are representative of the people in our areas. We want to make sure that we're bringing home capital dollars to ensure that projects are getting funded and coming to be fully realized. You know, over the years, many of us have worked on making sure that there are investments in the Degwallich Wellness Center, as an example. And now we're working on the North Star facility, realizing that we don't operate in silos and that you know, we don't respect legislative district boundaries. We have people that live in places that need access to services. And so we have to be able to deliver them in a way that regionally is meaningful. So on the local government committee, it's one of the most fascinating, I'm wonky this way, but like one of the most fascinating committee jurisdictions. I think we get everything from declaring counties frontier counties, which opens them up for different federal match dollars, to Representative Lowe's bill and Senator Wagner's bill that have to do with you know, county issues. But then I also get to do a lot of fun stuff around housing and zoning. This year, one of the really interesting bills that I love to help support behind the scenes has to do with legalizing co-living housing. So for those of you back in the day, it used to be that there was boarding houses, right? It was like people had a unit in a home, they had a shared kitchen space and sometimes shared bathroom spaces, but many municipalities had banned them, that style of development. I think at a time when we have seniors that would like to age in place with a little more community, we have young people that need opportunities that are less expensive to be able to move out on their own for the first time, that it provides a really wonderful market-based approach for that. In terms of the things that we get done, one of the things that I think is incredibly important to the business community is making sure that we have housing affordability. And I think we're going to have a concerted effort next year to achieve rent stabilization. Let me be clear, this is not rent control. That is a completely different policy. That is not what is before us. What we're talking about is finding a way to set a realistic cap on the percentage of increases for rent. And that is to give people predictability. 4 million Washingtonians are renters. And I think anybody that owns a business can appreciate the fact that when people take a massive hike, an unexpected hike in their rent, they often get displaced and now they're moving out of town and now you guys are trying to refill that position. People deserve and renters deserve to have the same predictability in their monthly budgets that homeowners do, and rent stabilization provides exactly that. If you know that you can only have a 15% hike in your rent, then you know to account for up to that. So these are some of the things that we work on. We had, you know, supplemental budget, capital budget. I can't wait to have all of you guys remotely come and testify in support of our revenue packages, especially for transportation, because guess what, guys, we're not going to get there unless we have the revenue to support these important investments, and transportation is the backbone that makes our businesses be able to survive and thrive. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Senator Loveland. And I love the production credit. I'm going to try to get some production credit. And I would certainly like to hear questions from those of you in the room and people on Zoom also. Just come up to the microphone, please. Don't be shy. Step right up.
So much information. I want to just applaud you all for even being here. I know it's a cold and rainy day and you don't always get met with the biggest audience when you're here, but the fact that you come means so much to us. I want to say that I really appreciate your support in providing those capital funds Representative Loveland was just referring to, and the support that you give to making sure that we have those critical resources and services available in our communities here. I know that Representative Shaver supported getting that funding in for the First Step Center here in Burlington City, and all of you had a part in that. And just really, there's so much work being done, and Representative Eslick showing up to our sexual assault task force meetings, and just even if it's via Zoom, the fact that you know that that's happening is just incredible to me. So I feel like I know you guys. I really appreciate your work that you're doing. I do though. I feel like I'm hearing words like whirlwind, and there were 1,600 bills, and you have like cram time, and there's like 2 months to process all of this. And just, I'm finding, since I've been paying attention to the work that you all do, because it's challenging to even follow, that perhaps some of the and I love that you collaborate. So I'm going to challenge you guys in a question here, that you're all getting along and able to talk about these topics, but with such limited time, are you challenging each other? I remember Senator Wagner was, trying to support our officers' right to pursue last year, and having that voice, and that just presenting to the rest of your team and everybody involved that, this can become a problem down the road, was important to recognize then when it was brought up. So my question, I guess, today, if I can get to it, is with all of this that's coming out and all of these initiatives and bills that are being enacted now, what did planning actually look like? Were you really testing out the demand from, I'll say, I'm going to bring it right to the utility and energy, and we're talking about, in my head, I'm talking about the climate initiatives, the Commitment Act, the CCA that we hear people referring to in a lot of different elements, because it's layering into housing policy. It's layering into so many different areas of everything that we do. And proponently, what I've been understanding is that it's excuse me for checking my notes. It's not the end user, but the production side. It's where suppliers are being charged to, initiate some of this new vision that the state has as a whole. And yes, we're just here in Skagit County, but are we thinking about how that's impacting the end user down the road and what that looks like, and how are we resilient if we're reducing our options? And so I know that was a really, really loaded question with like 3 different aspects for you guys to answer. I would appreciate hearing from any and all of you on some of your ideas here.
So I'll start, but first I want to kind of frame it a little bit. You're talking about one of the areas where you're probably going to see some disagreement on this panel. In general, though, about 85 to 90% of bills that are voted on the floor go across with large majorities in a bipartisan manner, many unanimous. Now we're traipsing into the 10 to 15% where there's philosophical or practical differences. And Climate Commitment Act is one of those areas where you're going to find some discrepancies in opinions up here. We can't talk about the initiative, but we can talk about the laws that exist today. So I did not support the Climate Commitment Act, and it was based on information that I had Washington Policy Institute predicted, and they have the pencil geeks to pencil it out, that it would be about a 50% increase on fuel that we use. 50 cents, I'm sorry, 50 cents a gallon. Thanks, Liz. And I believe that. And it has come to fruition. So if it was only an increase in fuel, it would be less problematic. And I will concede that the way that this works has a potential to pay for a lot of good things. But the cost of fuel affects everything. And it was implemented poorly. It was supposed to exclude agricultural. That was implemented improperly. We're trying to pay back the money to the farmers and folks who work in ag that got overcharged. But that cost runs across our economy. And the things that we talked about, cost overruns for everything from our behavioral health facilities to the eggs you buy in the grocery store, were affected by that. So we have a decision to make. I guess people have a decision to make in November where we want to go with that. Are we going to give up the funding, which funds good things, or are we going to continue down this path that I think is driving inflation and cost of living and hurting the very people that we're trying to help, which are people on the lower end of the economic scale. So I think we really have to wrestle with this, but the people are going to get a chance to wrestle with it also because it's going to be on the ballot.
I want to give a perspective on that too. So, yes, there was an impact to the cost of fuel proportionate to the price at auction for the carbon market that we've created with the Cap and Invest program. I will note that the auction prices came in half of what they were last time. So naturally, the oil companies should be reducing that cost to consumers. But did they? I don't know. I don't think that they did. I would recommend that all of you look up the Senate Energy and Environment Committee hearing that we had around cost transparency with fuel distributors. It's pretty revelatory around what indeed impacts the price of gas. And they say on the record that it's the price of crude, that it's the instability that comes from getting it from unstable foreign governments that are often having conflicts. And those are all externalized things that impact the price of oil or the price of gas at the pump. It's not to say that there isn't an externalized cost to the public, because there certainly is, but we're also, all of us are paying the externalized cost of the hazards that this has put in our communities. It's both the public investment that we have to make in oil spills. It's the public investment that we have to put into health to help kids with asthma. It's all of these other externalized things that have happened because we have not started to map out a just transition to different kinds of fuels. And in the meantime, we're in the in-between, right? We know that we have transitions that we need to make, but we need to equip our refineries with new types of technology. So one of the things that the Climate Commitment Act is doing is providing a match to get federal dollars in so that we can have the biggest green hydrogen hub in North America. It's making sure that we're putting investments into bike and pedestrian infrastructure. It's making sure that kids can ride free on every ferry, every bus, and every train in Washington State. So we're trying to really match the proceeds with things that are going to lead to forward-thinking investments that allow us to transition our communities.
That. So we've got a lot of research to do as voters. This is going to be on the ballot in November. I have a follow-up question though. You guys were talking about the fuel and perhaps I got it wrong. Oh, sorry. I thought,
Well, let's, why don't you go back to the end of the queue? That's it. Sorry.
Good morning, John Sternlake, the Economic Development Alliance of Skagit County. Thank you all for the work you do. I think you are a great example and also represent the work we do across Skagit County, because everybody works so well together, so collaboratively, and a lot more so than other places I've been. So thank you to all the chambers who work so beautifully together and also with us. It's really what sets us apart. So I know you talked about 1,600 bills and how hard you work. I'm going to bring up something totally new that's extra for you, because I know you wanted that. I know I'm extra. So not only for business attraction, but also for business retention and expansion, our businesses that are here, as well as the ones that are looking here, are finding problems with electric power, as in there's not enough. And it's difficult for us to know, in business attraction, at least, it's a game of elimination. So if there's a roadblock, they'll go, we'll go somewhere else, and where it's already figured out. What can we do looking forward 10, 15, 20 years to make sure the businesses that are here already, let alone the ones that we would like to be here, are going to have enough power to do what they need to do? It's a little, the system is a little bit mysterious to those of us in economic development, at least, and maybe to everybody. But what can we do to work towards getting enough power for these businesses so they can grow? I know this was not on the list of approved questions.
No, but phasing out natural gas too, right? So well, that concerns me because I heat my house with natural gas. The facts are that there's a lot of things that I understand in that climate change is happening. To what degree is the question in my mind? And how fast we move is the other issue. My opinion is we are moving too fast, and that blocks what you're talking about, the electric issue. We have put so many regulations on the electrical companies and so much fear in them that they are, in my opinion, stopping their growth in that arena and doing other kinds that cost so much money for them. And in the end, we are the ones that are paying the bills. I don't have a solution for you. I don't know how we can do this, but we need to understand that we need a balance in everything that we do in Olympia. And one of them is we need to slow this train down and take extra years to get to where we need to be. And that's kind of my philosophy on that.
So I'm going to give some credit to some of the ideas you already heard about up here. Senator Lovett's been working on geothermal. Representative Shavers has talked about fusion, the future of. We need to, and we have been investing in all of these areas. I don't want to discard what we have now, and that's important that we wait till the solutions are real and operating before we discard things like hydroelectric in different parts of the state. But in Skagit, we're actually quite lucky because we have our own dams upriver that are at least close to us in proximity. There's other things we should be working on. Small modular nuclear technology is coming online. And I know when you say the word nuclear, people get a little bit nervous. These are a different generation of nuclear reactors, and I think they're going to pay off in dividends. We also heard about hydrogen as a potential. So it's very important that we work in every single area. I think that this has the attention of the legislature. We're as concerned about it as you are. And I support all of these different opportunities to create energy. I just don't want to discard things that we already have that are working before. I mean, I would love a carbon-free 100% electrical generation in Washington State scenario, but we're not there yet. So we need to do this in a very careful manner and bring the new ideas in, hang on to what we have that works, natural gas, hydroelectric. And I think that we will get there, but we have to be careful not to throw out what we're already using that we know is effective and then bring on these great new ideas like hydrogen, geothermal, fusion, if it ever comes to fruition in our lifetime. I'm fingers crossed.
We also have a lot of oversight from our non-governmental agency, like the Utilities and Transportation Commission. They're there to help do rate setting cases, et cetera. And keeping in mind that the Climate Commitment Act or the bill that Representative Eslick was mentioning that only pertain to Puget Sound Energy around their decarbonization plan. I mean, these are goalposts that have a long phase in, and they also have off ramps if it's just not realistic. And so we did build into the policy release valves to just make sure that if they're not on track, and not because they're just kicking the can down the road, but because there legitimately isn't the energy supply, that there are off ramps for that. But one of the things that I would highlight that I think is, I would love to see the business community really embracing is the idea of cogeneration. So like, for example, at the Sierra Pacific plant, they burn hog fuel, which is, for the benefit of the public, basically sawdust. I mean, to just make it overly simplistic. So they have a clean burning generator there that runs on hog fuel, and it provides enough electricity to not only power their entire operation, but then puts more back in the grid. So if you think about what we could be doing with wastewater reclamation, waste heat reclamation, there's so many different ways that we could be developing our port areas, our business park areas, so that we are utilizing all of those things. Because at the end of the day, one of the foundational pieces of climate change is there's no such thing as waste, right? Everything needs to be turned into something else. So whether we're trying to figure out how to bring on more renewable natural gas by putting in, frankly, cow poop and compost, there's a lot of ways you can generate electricity. It's just a matter of getting the technology accepted to a point where it brings that cost point down, but we're never going to get there with a kick the can down the road approach.
Thank you all.
Thanks for asking that question, John. Very important. Step right up.
Hello, thank you for being here. Riley Sweeney, ABC Recycling. I'm curious, it was a short session, but what was the most surprising moment during the session, right? Because it seems a lot of preordained process. And I was just wondering what each of you found to be the most surprising moment that happened. Sorry for the hard one. We can go back to energy policy if you like.
I think the most surprising point in the session for me was there was a bill that was brought about that was going to allow local governments to increase your property taxes by 300%. And but I want to explain what 300% means. So it's just not from our 1% per annum to 3% per annum. And that bill looked like it was going to be forced through. And there was a lot of resistance from the public and from people like me. So when that bill got pulled and did not go forward, I was extremely surprised because I thought that was going to be ramrodded to a vote and become law. And for me, that was a great moment to see it die. However, I want to caveat that because there is a real need for local government. They have a need. I proposed a solution and it did not get heard in committee. So my solution was in 2012, the state swept all the liquor revenue from local government. They just took it. It's never come back. If we return the liquor revenue to local government, the second bill I proposed, Senator Mazzal is reminding me, was to double the cannabis revenue. So remember when cannabis was a thing and it was going to pay for everything. Local government, the county gets 1.5%. Cities get 3.5%. The state took everything else. If we just doubled that to 3% and 7% and return to liquor revenue, we would fill that entire bucket that tax was designed to give to local government. Now that means Olympia has to curb its own spending. So that was the big moment for me to see that bill die. A bigger moment, and I'm hopefully next session, because when I bring up returning those revenues, I get a lot of head nods from the other side of the aisle. Somehow it never gets through committee.
So I'm a blue collar guy. Sometimes wonder what the heck I'm doing in Olympia. I'm the fourth generation on the farm. We got two daughters that are back on the farm with their families. Third daughter lives on the island. All of them are essentially self-employed. The cost of existing in this state. We got the fourth highest food price in the nation, and yet we've got food all around us. We got one of the most blessed states in the union when it comes to diversity of food production, and yet our food costs are the fourth highest. Seattle is the #1 city in the nation of its size for food cost. We weren't supposed to get hammered with the Carbon Commitment Act, but those of us in food, timber, in marine who were not supposed to get hammered with that, we ended up paying it. And so our cost of production, the food stops 4 different places from the farm to the plate. Every one of them is paying this increased cost. We just chose to give corporate welfare to a large company that's owned by international pension funds the ability to eliminate natural gas. Well, that affects each home, but it affects the Darigold powder plant. It affects those plants that are dehydrating potatoes. It affects our cost of living. And I saw very little attention. I mean, our local food bank in Oak Harbor is struggling. One Skagit County is struggling to keep enough food for those who need food. I'm appalled that we don't even consider that when we start discussing the climate stuff, the impact it's going to have to the bottom third of our population who can't afford electric cars, who can't afford a gas, can't afford rent. We talk about rent control, but discretionary spend, they don't have it anymore. And I watch my kids and my grandkids. I wonder, are we so far out over our skis that we aren't considering who's actually standing on those skis? So that's where I'm, throw in, and I've been fully involved in behavioral health, substance abuse programs, but we're losing the battle, folks. We're losing the battle. Yesterday, 1 year since I lost a niece to substance abuse. So it's very personal to me, very personal to me. And the people that I represent, it's very personal to them. They don't care how many bills. They don't care about all of this stuff. They care about how they're going to pay for the groceries at the end of the day or how much gas they're going to put in their car because they can't go buy an electric. And I wonder about my future, who depends on electricity for keeping meat frozen and pumping irrigation water. As we continue to push an overstressed system, am I going to be able to survive in business because now my electrical costs have tripled? That's what surprises me in Olympia. How much do we really care about the people, or do we care about virtue signaling?
Any thoughts? Dave, do you have a quick question? I think we're just about done here, but step right up. I think this is gonna wrap it up.
Well, Mr. Mazzal, thank you for that. And thank you to all of you. You guys have probably the hardest volunteer position there is, and we appreciate you doing what you do. Well, I also really appreciate the talk of being a purple group. I don't think anybody in this room cares what side of the aisle you sit on. We're concerned about our local areas, and the legislation that you fight for directly affects those. Myself, I'm a lifelong resident of the Valley, but I work I'm a health insurance broker, and I represent 93 small business owners with less than 50 employees here in Skagit, Island, Whatcom, San Juan, and Snohomish counties. So talking to all of you is important to me, and I hear it at street level. Kind of piggybacking on what Mr. Mazzal was just talking about, but when we talk about these legislations and these big picture ideas and what we need, a 100-year plan, a 50-year plan, a 20-year plan, but we're having problems today out on the street with our small business owners trying to expand. You can't, because they can't get the power. They have too much regulation that's being forced on large corporation that trickles down to a 10-employee group, and they can't afford it. They can't afford to expand. So my question is, the cost of doing business for nonprofits and other small businesses has risen dramatically in Washington. And what has legislator done to reduce that burden? Thank you.
I guess I'll start, seeing nobody else jump into the mic. It's been really fascinating to watch the conversation through the years around revenue. What is inherently progressive revenue, versus what is inherently regressive revenue? Because it cuts both ways, right? We have been unable to take bold moves like enacting a wealth tax, for example. This would kick in after your first $1 billion of income. And somehow we've not managed to get that to the finish line, but we're discussing things like the 1% property tax cap. There's a lot of policies that are moving all the time, and we try to bird dog them as much as we can. And I will say, for me personally, working at the intersection of transportation, land use, and climate change, to me, if we are not firmly wedding the idea that keeping those costs controlled is going to lead to more poverty, like that is baked into so many of these programs. And we show that by putting so many resources into things like the Housing Trust Fund, making sure that we're delivering units to communities that need them. We show that by putting money into things like programs to get people's homes weatherized, so that they're paying less on in their utility bills. So we really did try to match up the proceeds coming in with the needs that are in the community so that we can in fact get there together. There's no easy answers. And if you look across the country, you know, every state is kind of embattled in their own, their own issues, right? One of the things that I was really excited to see make it to the finish line in a bipartisan manner, and it took many years, was starting to finally reform and regulate prescription benefit managers. That was a huge deal that you have a third party person, and you working in the health insurance industry know this well, I'm sure, but the idea that a third party person who is not a medical provider at all can be triaging out what your drug should cost, what kind of benefits you're going to receive, that's unacceptable. The fact that we have, you know, for-profit medical care in a system that's absolutely understaffed and having real challenges recruiting folks, having real challenges paying living wages for people who are doing things like infection control and other things, you know, those things in the hospital that really improve those outcomes. Like these are all investments that we need to be making together. And I think, you know, even though we get flashy headlines like the state just banned natural gas, which if you read the policy is not in that policy. We did not ban natural gas. We authorized PSC to start building a blueprint to, you know, do what they need to do to decarbonize their entire portfolio. That also includes bringing on new types of energy like small modular reactors and thermal energy networks. It doesn't mean that you're just going to immediately, they're going to turn off the gas. Like that's not realistic, but it's also not realistic to say one person at the end of this road has natural gas. And so we're going to invest millions of dollars into maintaining that infrastructure over time, just so that that person can continue having natural gas. We have to have a wide-eyed and realistic approach to solving these things. And nowhere more is it more apparent than in people's access to healthcare. Healthcare should be a basic, fundamental human right. Everybody should be able to go to the doctor when they're sick. Everybody should be able to get procedures when they need them. And everything we can keep doing to collaborate with our hospital districts and with our federal partners to specifically increase Medicare reimbursement. Those are all things that are going to help people's bottom line in the short term. Yeah, it's a big complex problem, but know that we're all rowing in that direction.
So I will mention that Association of Washington Business gave me 100% on my voting this last session. I understand business. I understand the cost of business. I understand this cost of business continuing. Backing up, Puget Sound Energy has 9 gas to electric plants in Western Washington. They're using natural gas to make the electricity that we're using. This process that was set up in the legislature, they're not going to shut off. In fact, we forbid them to shut off gas to the homes, but this gives them a corporate welfare system to exit using gas to make electricity, as well as supplying gas to those homes. They make far less money supplying gas than they do electricity. They want to go that path. So I don't have any problem with PSC. I have a problem with the legislation, which was written by them, offered, brought forward, shown to be non-rule following. So they had to go back and rewrite it. And then we passed this bill to give them this off-ramp. I think it's unfair. I think that the legislature was incorrect in doing that. But we don't do enough for small business. Small business employs the most people in the state of Washington. Small business pays the most in taxes. We've got a B&O tax system that is corrupt as far as I'm concerned. We don't do enough to help small business, which is the backbone, which I'm one of. We've got 10 employees, most of them part-time, and that's their choice. But we do not in the legislature understand well enough the impact that small business has on every community in our state. And we've done very little to make their path easier.
Well, I think we'll end on that. Thank you all very much. Well, I think we all need to, get out there. So appreciate you legislators, all your good work, and you're getting out in the community with us. It's really fantastic. Appreciate your being here. Do want to thank City of Burlington to hosting us and the Burlington Chamber putting all the work on the computer and getting that fine food from Avenue Catering. And by the way, it looks like you should probably take a little bit of it with you. So thanks all and have a good day. Maybe the rain will stop and we can get out in the tulips.